All right, let's dive right in. Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're putting on our historical researcher hats and investigating the absolute genesis of one of the most powerful digital empires in human history. We're going to dig into the actual artifacts, the governing documents, and, the real psychology behind the everything store, Amazon. It's an absolutely fascinating look at the architectural blueprint of modern commerce as built by Jeff Bezos.
So here's our historical roadmap for today. We'll be tracing the timeline through 5 distinct eras. 1. Foundations of an empire. 2. Surviving the dot-com crash. 3. Building the growth engine. 4. The governing philosophy. And finally, 5. The price of power. Let's get to it.
Section 1. Foundations of an empire.
Now, to really understand this empire, we first have to understand its architect, right? Before the billions, Jeff Bezos was just a natural tinkerer. He literally spent summers on his grandfather's Texas ranch rigging up baking pan alarms. Fast forward a bit, and he's a Princeton valedictorian and a Wall Street VP by age 26. Pretty impressive. But then in 1994, he comes across this incredibly startling historical statistic: 2,300%. That was the annualized growth rate of early web usage. To put that in perspective, things just do not grow that fast. That single, staggering data point was the exact catalyst that convinced him to walk right into his boss's office, quit his incredibly lucrative job, and start an internet business.
But I mean, how does someone logically justify that kind of massive risk? Well, he used this specific mental model he called the regret minimization framework. Basically, he projected himself forward to age 80 and realized, hey, I won't regret trying and failing, but I would absolutely regret missing out on this internet thing entirely. It was this psychological law that drove his massive gamble to capture a market that physically couldn't exist in the real world, a store with limitless inventory. Seriously, think about your own life for a second. How many bold decisions would you make if you applied that exact same 80-year-old lens to your choices?
Okay, let's look at the scrappy timeline of those early days. We're talking 1994, relocating to a Bellevue garage. And if we're looking at historical artifacts from this era, there is nothing more iconic than the famous door desks. I'm not kidding, Bezos and his early team built their office furniture out of literal wooden doors from Home Depot. It established this ruthless culture of extreme frugality that honestly still exists there today. By 1995, they sell their very first book, on computer models of thought actually, and then very quickly the idea just spread like wildfire. They were selling so many books, they literally had to disable the office beeper that signaled a new sale just so they could get some peace and quiet.
Section 2. Surviving the dot-com crash.
So by the turn of the millennium, the internet bubble bursts. This was the empire's most dangerous historical phase. Amazon stock plummets by over 80%, and financial critics are out there openly calling the struggling company Amazon toast. Yikes. But Bezos observed this fundamental economic shift happening. He noted that the chaotic speculation of the 1999 market was basically just a voting machine, purely driven by popularity and hype. The 2000 crash, however, that turned the market into a weighing machine, where only actual substance, revenue, and economic fundamentals mattered. Overnight, the empire was suddenly being weighed.
To survive this, they fell back on their ultimate governing document, the 1997 shareholder letter. In it, Bezos famously declared that for Amazon, it is always day one. He essentially set a standard of immense patience. They remained incredibly stubborn on their long-term vision while keeping the details flexible, completely ignoring the short-term panic of Wall Street. It's a blueprint countless modern startups still try to mimic today. And honestly, it proved that the empire absolutely refused to blink during the crash.
Section 3. Building the growth engine. Now, just surviving the crash wasn't going to be enough. They had to figure out how to transform from a mere retail store into a massive, sprawling platform. Enter their strategic blueprint, the flywheel. It's essentially a self-reinforcing business loop. Think of it like a giant engine. Lower prices attract more customers, which in turn brings in more third-party sellers, which expands the selection, and boom, lowers costs even further. If you've ever found yourself wondering, how on earth can they afford to ship me a $5 item in 2 days? Well, this hidden machinery is your answer. It brilliantly turns shipping, a massive cost for everyone else, into an unmatched competitive advantage.
And that flywheel ultimately built the 3 pillars of the modern Amazon platform. You've got Prime, which created this almost addicted customer base, and the Marketplace, which pulls in millions of third-party sellers. But here is the real revelation. The actual invisible circuitry of the entire empire is AWS, or Amazon Web Services. AWS isn't retail at all, it's cloud computing, and it quietly grew into the world's most profitable cloud engine. It's the secret profit engine funding the whole shebang.
The massive profits from this engine eventually allowed Bezos to look up, literally. Since his youth, he had dreamt of space colonization. He actually founded Blue Origin way back in the year 2000 with a very specific motto, Gradatim ferociter, which translates to step by step, ferociously. And to fund this childhood dream and kick off a brand new billionaire space race, he started liquidating $1 billion of his Amazon stock annually. No big deal, right?
Section 4. The Governing Philosophy.
So how do you even begin to manage a behemoth of this size? You have to mandate relentless psychological focus. Bezos famously instituted this fascinating practice known as the empty chair. Literally, in every major meeting, they place a physical empty chair right at the table to represent the customer. It's a reminder of the most important person in the room who, isn't actually there. This simple physical artifact strictly enforced a culture where every single decision had to be reverse engineered straight from the consumer's perspective.
Then there's their extremely strict executive protocol. Bezos hated flashy presentations so much, he outright banned PowerPoint. Just gone. Instead, leaders are mandated to author deeply thought-out 6-page written narratives. I want you to imagine starting a super high-stakes corporate meeting with 15 minutes of dead, complete silence while everyone just sits there and reads. Only after those complex arguments are fully digested does anyone even begin to speak. Talk about a culture shock.
But running right alongside these strict cultural rules is a serious mandate for risk. Bezos preached this idea that failure and invention are inseparable twins. The philosophy here is that you simply cannot achieve unprecedented historical growth without some truly spectacular failures along the way. In this empire, failing is quite literally just the cost of inventing. Section 5. The Price of Power.
Of course, operating at this incredible scale inevitably creates friction. It's just a historical reality. Critics and workers have protested the grueling pace and demanding working conditions inside those massive fulfillment centers. Now, in response, the company did raise its starting minimum wage to $15 an hour, explicitly stating their goal to become Earth's best employer. Yet, at the same time, they face ongoing allegations of anti-union tactics, not to mention mounting international scrutiny from lawmakers over their immense monopoly power. We're looking at the very complex, real-world consequences of a corporate empire expanding at this magnitude. Which brings us toward the end of our historical narrative today. In the end, we are our choices, Bezos once remarked. As he eventually stepped back from the CEO role to focus on his bigger picture space ambitions, he left behind a fundamentally altered reality. That young boy who tinkered on a Texas ranch, he didn't just build a store. He completely re-architected global logistics and computing as we know it. And so I want to leave you with a powerful, lingering question to ponder the very next time you click Buy Now. Has he built a tool that empowers humanity or a machine that controls it? Well, thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep analyzing the history around you, keep learning, and I'll see you next time.